Hello students, I welcome you to yet another interesting class with me in government. In today's lesson, I will be exposing you to the topic New Partnership for Africa's Development, NEPAD. So we'll be looking at how NEPAD was formed, the aims and objectives of NEPAD. Now let's look at the lesson objectives. By the end of this topic, you should be able to explain the meaning of NEPAD, discuss the formation of NEPAD, highlight the objectives of NEPAD, and enumerate the various commitments of NEPAD. Now, let's look at the meaning of NEPAD. NEPAD is a socio-economic and political framework. It is the homegrown African initiative to overcome the age-long obstacle of African development. It is the organization that was formed to help tackle the developmental problems in Africa. NEPAD was formed in October 2001 at the 37th summit of the AU held in Lusaka in Zambia. And this was an initiative that was brought about by former presidents of the various countries, like the president of South Africa, Thabo Mbeki, former president Olusegun Obasanjo of Nigeria, and also the president Abdulaziz Bouteflika of Algeria. Now, let's look at the commitments of NEPAD. What are the various commitments of NEPAD? NEPAD is committed to peace, security, and good governance in Africa. This is believed to be a necessary condition for any economic growth within the continent. So, NEPAD is committed to good governance. Again, NEPAD is committed to upholding democracy and human rights. NEPAD is committed to upholding the rule of law. It is committed to upholding the fundamental human rights of the citizens, that the voice of the citizens could be heard. Again, NEPAD is committed to reduce conflicts and have greater access to world market so that Africa can be developed, so that there could be stability and developmental acceleration in Africa. Again, NEPAD is also committed to fight corruption, which has eaten deep into the fabric of Africa's political and economic soul. NEPAD is committed to the overall development of Africa. Now, what role has NEPAD played in the development of Africa? What has been the various achievements of NEPAD? This interview that you are about to watch will give you more insights on the various commitments and achievements of NEPAD.
Africa, home to 7 of the 10 fastest growing economies in the world, is set to double its gross domestic product in the next 10 years. However, for the continent to achieve this, the public and private sectors will have to work together. Our team attended the 10th anniversary of the New Partnership for Africa's Development in Johannesburg this week and filed this report.
The theme for the 3rd annual NEPAD African Ambassadors Dinner was the role of public and private partnerships in achieving sustainable economic development. Stanley Subramani, chairman of the NEPAD Business Foundation, says Africa is a far more investor-friendly destination now and offers better returns and profit margins.
We know that Africa is hungry for infrastructure, it's hungry for power, it's hungry for telecommunications. So every conceivable product that is consumed in this consumer market, every single large multinational that has got a product to offer will find that Africa is open for business. It will offer margins that are significantly higher than the rest of the world. It will offer an environment that is better in terms of growth potential. But more importantly, it will offer those businesses a greater lifespan in terms of their long-term strategy from a business point of view.
When NEPAD was set up in 2000, it set an African GDP target of 7%, a figure which has proven to be just out of reach, with Africa expecting a 5.1% growth for 2011. but the role of business in development on the continent is pivotal.
We talk about smart partnerships relative to working with governments, together with governments, in terms of making a difference. The opportunities are massive. You just need to go to any country across the continent and you'll see for yourself that there's massive opportunities. So PPPs is one way to do it. Strategic partnerships with other governments is other ways to do it. But certainly we see infrastructure as a way that will continue to power the African continent in terms of the growth part to 2020.
The continent's GDP is set to double to $2.2 trillion by 2020 from the current $1.6 trillion. However, South Africa, the continent's biggest economy, says for these numbers to be realized, more intra-African trade will be needed.
If you look at the map of Africa and you look at the rail infrastructure, for instance, you'll see all the rail moves from certain countries with particular resources to the sea, to the ports. And the purpose there was basically to export raw materials outside to countries outside the African continent. And that necessarily established the trend of Africa trading with the outside world and not with itself.
The NEPAD leadership is aware that business and investments thrive on stability, and in the face of changing leadership, a delicate balance is needed.
Private sector looks very carefully at risks associated with investments, and the changing leadership on the African continent is dealing quite decisively with some of the risks that are identified by the private sector. For instance, issues of stability, political stability, issues of good governance, issues of peace. Those are the issues that are currently the driving approaches of the current leadership on the African continent. And therefore we see these as addressing the risks that are pertinent in any private sector investment. And therefore we see greater opportunities and chances in future that will see the growth of public-private partnerships in the development of the African continent.
Dr. Ibrahim Mayaki, CEO of the NEPAD agency, also told us about the priority areas for the continent.
Agriculture will be a main priority, and what we intend is to transform Africa in a global food producer, because as you know, the food shortages in 2030 will be quite critical.